All right, welcome everybody. We are live. I hope you're having a good day, unless you are one of these people pushing pee drinking, in which case you're in trouble. Just a little joke I wanted to start with. Shout out to the person in the chat that gave me that joke. So we have an issue on our hands, and it is that people are gaining trust by pointing out that the mainstream establishment pushes a lot of things without evidence. And to that, they have a great point. People like Dr. Cowan, who I'm going to talk about today. But then, all of a sudden, he'll turn around and then push a bunch of quackery without evidence. And really disgusting quackery, too. So I'm going to share my opinions because what good am I if I just sit on my hands doing nothing while this disgusting practice is pushed on my friends and people who watch this channel? I think people need to demand evidence. Call these people out if they don't provide it. They're total hypocrites. So that's probably a good place to start here. Let's show my screen. Here's DPL, who does a great job calling out virology and many unproven claims that are pushed across our desks trying to make us rush into certain decisions. And he clipped this video. I haven't actually watched the video. It's not about this video here. But DPL brings up a great point. And you can probably imagine what's in this clip here of Dr. Cowan. I've shared lots of clips of Dr. Cowan bringing up excellent points about virology, poking holes in virology. And that's another reason why I wanted to bring this forward, my opinion on this. Because everybody does not agree with these people about this, in my opinion, disgusting urine drinking practice. So I'm trying to be a voice of reason and use my platform to try to demand that they actually put together a half-cohesive or a half-coherent explanation of why they're peddling urine drinking. I have my theories. And I think it has to do, sneak preview of my theories, I think it has to do with negative eugenics. I wonder how many relationships have broken down because they've convinced people that urine drinking is some sort of a miracle cure, which again, to the YouTube robo-censor cops, that's not what I'm saying. I do not believe that it's a cure of anything. I think it's a way to re-ingest toxins that you're trying to eliminate. You're trying to detox, piss it out, and then people convince you to drink it. So I much prefer people drinking clean water and then just keep flushing out the toxins. So I think it's negative eugenics, just like how they tell people, don't mate with the vaccinated. Don't mate with the vaccinated. Don't even date the vaccinated. Don't go near them. They're going to shed on you. And I'm not saying Cowan. I don't think he pushes shedding. There's a lot of people who tell our folk, people like us, to not even mix. Don't even mingle. Just be totally segregated. It's like, where have we heard this before? Oh, that's right. The American South with the negative eugenics of black people, which is a terrible thing. Just make sure I'm on the record. I'm totally against Jim Crow and all those terrible atrocities. But I think this is like social suicide. You're just handing somebody a gun, basically, and just telling them to commit social suicide by having them run around peddling drinking pee as some sort of a medical cure. And I'm totally against it. And I want to demand that they provide evidence. Because as far as I'm aware, there have been no studies, because it's so gross and disgusting and just so counterintuitive. Why would you drink your detox fluid that's coming out? You want to flush that down. But yeah, what good am I if I sit and I see people being conned into drinking pee? And I just say, well, they do bring up some good points. Well, that's the thing. It's like, that'd be like saying rat poison is fine because, there's a lot of good food in there. There's a lot of good food in that rat poison. Now, what I'm not going to say is that you're going to have some disastrous outcome and you're going to fall dead if you drink your pee. That's not how I look at this. But I do think this is disastrous for our echo chamber, for these people to be pushing this with no evidence. Like, where's their evidence? Like, you hear shit like, the proof's in the pudding. How many times have we heard the urine drinkers peddle this crap by saying, the proof's in the pudding? Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, oh, we can't actually demonstrate to you, but if you just drink your pee, you'll see. Like, this is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So here's the caption. And I think this is a great point. Being scientifically illiterate is a lot easier than actually sitting your ass down and doing the work to understand a topic. I don't need an alternative hypothesis to call out BS. Right, that's what I'm doing here. And here he is wearing his blue blocking sunglasses, even though he pushes a toxic dye, apparently, called methylene blue. So he's afraid of blue light, but not toxic blue dye. He pushes that on his audience. So here's what I said. I'd like him a lot more if he didn't push pee drinking. No scrutiny or studies needed for the shit he peddles, I guess. And then I followed up, and he pushes ant juice. Like, what the hell? He pushes ant juice. And all the time when you ask them, why are you pushing pee drinking? Why are you pushing ant juice? They say, well, people have been doing these things for a long time. As if that's some sort of scientific evidence that should drive medical decisions. And have people been drinking pee for a long time? What are you guys even talking about? So absolutely crazy. Yeah, somebody in the chat's talking about piss breath. I mean, I seriously wonder how many relationships have been destroyed because they've convinced people that drinking pee is some sort of a medical cure. They push turpentine. He pushes turpentine. Polyphenols. This one pissed me off the other day. I kind of stopped watching him after this. When he said, oh, buy my olive oil. It has polyphenols in it. Polyphenols are good for healing. That's what he said. He just summarized a huge class of substances as saying they're good for healing. Like, the amount of work you'd have to do to make that claim is off the charts, and he hasn't done it. Any questions? Because it just seems like he's flying by the seat of his pants when it comes time to peddle his products. And so I'm calling him out because I have a platform, and that's what I feel like doing today. All right. So it's like he flicks off the demand for evidence like a switch when it comes time to push random shit that doesn't work. Isn't that interesting? After building up a rapport with his audience, building up trust with his audience, by hammering the point home about how it's crucial to demand scientific evidence. And if you can't get the scientific evidence, you can't make the claim. Yet here he is doing the exact same thing. I mean, what the hell? The ant juice? Nobody else is going to call this out. He's pushing ant juice. Well, people have been doing it for a long time. And then I had this revelation here. JPL says, Jep, and methylene blue. So I hadn't seen that. I'm just going off of DPL's commentary here that he's also pushing methylene blue, which I've covered in the past is very toxic. And I'm wondering, why are we seeing this being pushed so often? So I'm almost wondering, like, is there some sort of a quota that all these agents have to hit? It's like, okay, you don't want to push ivermectin? Well, you can push urine drinking, you can push methylene blue, you can push milk thistle, you can, like, all these other things that shut down the detox pathway. And, urine drinking, it could be argued, shuts down a detox pathway. Because instead of getting rid of those toxins, you're putting them right back into circulation. You're putting them right back into your digestive tract. And methylene blue is another rat poison. It also kills rats. And it inhibits crucial CYP enzymes, including 3A4, which is the one that breaks down something like 50% of pharmaceutical drugs, which is why I've been calling out the grapefruit deception. People like Northrop on Mike Adams' show pushing grapefruit as a cure for COVID without even mentioning, like, just showing that she's a piss poor doctor at best. I think much, much worse than that. If you're going to push grapefruit on a bunch of people having no idea what they're actually being confronted with. And many of the drugs that are actually prescribed if you go to the doctor with COVID, so-called COVID, are metabolized by CYP3A4. And grapefruit is going to cut that in half, according to the studies I've read. One glass of grapefruit cuts CYP3A4 down by half. And you can see these drastic differences. You can read this article on timtruth.com. Drastic differences in the bodily uptake of drugs that are metabolized by CYP3A4, such as just this example here, simvastatin, Simvastatin, let's go with. Quote, grapefruit juice greatly increased the serum concentrations of both simvastatin and simvastatin acid. Sorry for butchering this. The mean concentration max of simvastatin was increased 9.4-fold. So that's the area under the curve here, which is a very interesting, important measurement because it takes into account concentration over time. You can also see the peak here. They're saying the peaks have a difference of times 9.4. So the peak here looks like it's around 1 hour in versus 2 hours in on this much higher simvastatin concentration curve. So the mean area under the curve was increased 16-fold by grapefruit juice. So I can find reasons why these products are being pushed. Take, for example, all these drugs they push for detox. They push ivermectin for detox, which is patently absurd. It's a potent PGP inhibitor. They push milk thistle for detox, also a PGP inhibitor. PGP is one of the most important detox pathways in our body, especially at the blood-brain barrier, at the testes, placenta barrier, et cetera, et cetera. And I like to also bring up, well, this is interesting too. There's midazolam. Remember how a lot of people were saying that people were being offed with midazolam in the hospitals? That was the allegation. I'll just say allegedly since we're on YouTube. Well, look at this. Excessive sedation can result from the administration of midazolam with grapefruit juice. Isn't that interesting? And then here's the chart showing this. You can see a much higher peak. So I see reasons that they're pushing K2. I see reasons that they're pushing quercetin. I see reasons that they're pushing methylene blue. And a lot of it has to do with the detox pathways. Isn't that interesting? So that's what jumps off the page at me when I hear people saying to drink your urine. Thankfully, I've never fallen for this. I had no inclination of ever going anywhere near my urine. Certainly not ingesting it. I have a traumatic childhood in some respects when it comes to urine, just because of I grew up in a swimming pool, practically. My mom was a swim coach. I swam my whole life. Everybody in my family were swimmers. I played water polo in college. I spent a lot of time in public swimming pools, which are oftentimes, as you know, heavily chlorinated because a lot of times people just piss in the pool, especially in the cold seasons. So I've encountered way more piss than I ever want to in my life. And so that's kind of a sidebar. So why do they not have the same level of evidence? These people who are questioning virology, poking holes in the stories of virology, yet they'll just say, well, people drank it in ancient India. People drank their piss in ancient India 1,000, 2,000 years ago. Or like, oh, one of my subscribers told me that they had their fill in the blank cured. Like, I'm convinced you could push a placebo as a medical cure, sell it for $20 a bottle, and you'd start getting testimonies coming in like, oh my gosh, I bought your supplement and my problem X went away. And then people who are bad actors will take that testimony and say, guys, look, confirmed, the proof's in the pudding. So I find this really insidious, frankly. And there's not going to be any studies looking at piss drinking and how it affects health. Like, so what are they basing this on? Nothing? Are they working backwards from trying to get us to drink our own piss, and why? Is it negative eugenics? Are they trying to break down relationships by getting you to tell your mother, hey, mom, you should try drinking your piss. It'll help. Like, she's never going to look at her son the same way if you tell your mom to drink your piss for medical reasons, etc. That's just one example. Speaking of methylene blue, which apparently Dr. Cowan pushes despite being afraid of blue light, he doesn't have an issue with toxic blue, methylene blue. There's a really interesting story that's been scrubbed off the AP's website from 1988 in Rome. And I have this whole write-up that I've been working on for a while. I never really published it. Check out timtruth.com. That's my Substack if you want to get this when it comes out. But there's a very interesting story where there's a huge scandal in Italy involving Israeli imported grapefruits. And then there's this counter story, that the story they ran with in the press, that was that there was a terrorist group. And the terrorist group came along and injected blue poison into grapefruits. And it caused like the entire Italian grapefruit supply to come to a grinding halt. And they stopped selling this stuff. I know this is off on a tangent from the piss drinking, but I thought this is somewhat related because I've been very interested in PGP. I've been very interested in CYP3A4. And that's one thing I want to mention. Why don't we ever hear Dr. Cowan talk about PGP? Does he think I'm totally off base? Does he think that this isn't an important detox pathway that's being purposefully shut down? I mean, I heard his critique the other day of ivermectin. He mentioned a little bit about the anti-fertility effects. He brought up his theory about, how he pokes holes in the virologist's story and they never come back with compelling evidence. Those are good points. But there's a lot more to the story. But as somebody who also pushes PGP inhibitors, he doesn't want us to know about the importance of that detox pathway. I guess he doesn't want us to just detox by pissing in the toilet. Or something. I don't know. It's very bizarre to me. I don't understand it. Their evidence sounds totally lacking, and their rationale sounds like, just a wink and a nod. Not medical advice, but I'm a doctor. All right. And that's not me saying I'm a doctor. I'm basically coming up with, trying to understand their point of view. But they try to gain trust, talking about really good points about virology. And then they'll just slip stuff in like he did in his show about ivermectin. Right after the ivermectin, he's like, okay, let's go to Q&A. Oh, this person asked me what to do with poison ivy. Well, I'd recommend, he said, a urine compress and then drink your urine. And by that point, I'd already shared the video on groupdiscover.com. I copied and pasted the link, shared it. I'm like, finally, somebody's calling this out. And then it's like, oh, he's going to use this as a springboard into pushing drinking urine. Really? You can't separate the two? All right, so interesting story from 1988 in Rome. Let's read some of this AP article. It's now deleted, by the way. Page unavailable. Health officials on Tuesday began seizing all grapefruit on sale in Italy after some pieces of fruit believed imported from Israel were found laced with a powerful poison. The health ministry ordered the nationwide seizure of all grapefruit on sale and in warehouses after health officials in the Lazio region, which includes Rome, reported that poisoned grapefruit was found in a Roman supermarket. Of the 12 grapefruit on sale at the Rome supermarket, six were found to have been injected by syringe with a bluish poison. That's how it was reported off the bat. The substance, which was not identified, was so powerful that it killed laboratory mice instantly. Now that's a huge, interesting claim. And the reason why I think it killed the laboratory mice instantly is because it was grapefruit juice, which inhibits CYP3A4, as does methylene blue to some extent. And then the methylene blue is also a toxic poison. So if we go back here, let's see what the LD50 is. You can see on the fact sheet, it can cause death, along with all these other adverse reactions. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is because apparently Dr. Cowan is pushing methylene blue, this poison, despite being afraid of blue light. He's afraid of blue light, but he pushes methylene blue. Somebody make that make sense. Animal data. Maternal and embryo-fetal toxicities were observed at all doses of methylene blue and were most evident at the 200 and 350 milligrams per kilogram per day doses. Embryo-fetal toxicities included reduced fetal weight, post-implantation loss, edema, and malformations including enlarged lateral ventricles. Methylene blue was administered orally to pregnant rabbits at doses of 50, 100, or 150 milligrams per kilogram per day during the period of organogenesis, so the creation of the organs. Maternal death was observed at the methylene blue dose of 100 milligrams per kilogram. Embryo-fetal toxicities included spontaneous abortion at all dose levels, spontaneous abortion at all dose levels, and a malformation at the 100 and 150 milligrams per kilogram per day doses. So again, I don't know if Calvin is pushing this stuff. Shame on him if he is. I'm just going off what I heard. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm proven wrong on this. You can see here it inhibits CYP3A4 and PGP. And I don't know if it's excreted through the urine, but if he's telling people to drink their urine after taking methylene blue, it's like a double dose of the stuff. So it says here, bidirectional permeability studies of digoxin in COCO2 cells indicated that methylene blue is an inhibitor of PGP with an inhibitory concentration of 50% of 64.6 micromoles. Now, what's interesting, too, is if we, let's see. I wanted to see if I could find this other article that I had. Yeah, this one. Let's see what verapamil is. So verapamil is 5.4 IC50 PGP. Same thing, digoxin and COCO2 cells. K2 is 0.62. So that's why they really pushed the K2. Remember, I talked to a man who was in a coma for a week, racked up a huge hospital bill. Thankfully, he's alive because he had family there who saw he was in a coma and took him to the hospital. Other people who are living alone, what's going to happen to them if they fall into a coma for a week? Would the coma have lasted longer than a week if he wasn't in the hospital? These are the questions I wonder. But NATO K2, 0.62 IC50. Verapamil 5.4, which is apparently on par with CBD also. So there's all these ways that PGP is under attack, and these people can't be bothered to bring up this crucial information about PGP, yet they'll tell you to drink your piss. What the... I mean, I don't want to curse. Okay, so let's just compare this. 5.4... Oh, this is milligrams per milliliter, as opposed to micromoles, which is a concentration measurement. But let's see again. Micromole, okay, here it is, nanograms per milliliter. So we could convert that to milligrams. I think that'd be 18.7. 18.7 milligrams per milliliter, IC50. So not quite as potent as verapamil. It takes about 3 times as much. But if you look at like Twitter, for example, at how this stuff is being pushed as a nootropic, you see the most outrageous stuff. You see it being sold by like the gallon, which is just a recipe for disaster. You see like people taking huge what are those droppers called? They fill up one of those droppers, medical droppers, and they just like put it into this glass, and then they put like 3 big droppers in. Not drops, but like the entire dropper tool. So I just wonder why they can't be bothered to call this stuff out, which is happening. In fact, he jumps on the methylene blue bandwagon, but he's afraid of blue light. So I found this from 1988 very interesting, that like somebody, even before a lot of these papers came out, showing these interactions, showing what grapefruit does to CYP3A4, showing what methylene blue does to CYP3A4. And by the way, they're both also PGP inhibitors, grapefruit and methylene blue. Somebody was purposefully putting together a binary weapon by combining the two inside of a fruit, by injecting the methylene blue into the fruit. That shows foreknowledge. That shows advanced pharmacokinetic knowledge. Before, at least as far as I can tell, before the scientific literature would make that apparent as something that could be exploited. And I'm seeing the exploitation of drug interactions on a huge scale. And we're in this echo chamber, unfortunately, and we're just being bombarded with all this cacophony of terrible medical advice. And if you look at like, okay, what would happen if somebody actually followed all this medical advice? Oh, they'd be in a world of trouble because of all of the drug interactions. And you have who's pushing this? These people who claim to be holistic doctors. Oh, we know everything and we look at the whole system. Oh, but you can't be bothered to look at drug interactions and what other people are pushing on the internet? You can't be bothered? Or are you a part of this? Are you an accomplice? And I want to talk to these people. I'm hoping that they will respond and they'll put out a video and show their evidence and not just say that, oh, well, people have been drinking ant juice for a long time. People have been drinking their piss in ancient India. What are you talking about? This is absurd. This is crazy. Okay, enough with, you can see here, also very interesting, the CYP3 or CYP450 inhibition, the 3A4 down here. That's what I was thinking. CYP3A4, which is a subclass of CYP450. You can see the IC50, 122 nanograms per milliliter. That's a tiny amount to inhibit the concentration to 50%. I'd be interested in how this compares. This is methylene blue. I'd be interested in how this compares with grapefruit juice, which is a classic problem for drug dosing. People who take grapefruit juice and then take one of the 50% of drugs and then tons of toxins that are metabolized, they get broken down by this crucial enzyme, detox enzyme, CYP3A4. And I encourage everybody to look this up. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Okay, so let's look a little bit into the detox pathways. I just pulled this up on ChatGPT. What are the pathways of detox and how does urine fit in? Phase 1, detoxification, functionalization. Primarily occurs in the liver. It involves enzymes, mainly the cytochrome P450 family. Interesting, right, that this keeps popping up? Why is nobody talking about this? I'm not like a pioneer medical researcher. I can just see a pattern. And the reason I stumbled upon this is because I was looking at all these binary weapons that are being pushed, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on? Because these people don't care about our health. I'm not talking about Tom Cohen. I'm talking about the Stu Peters of the world, the Northrops of the world. Like, I'm seeing this pattern where all these like poisons are being pushed and then all these like really bizarre herbal, potent, over-the-counter shit being pushed. And then I saw that they clash drastically. And the drug interactions are off the chart. And then boom, it all makes sense. It's poisoning via binary weapons. So enzymes mainly from the cytochrome P450 family modify toxins, which could be drugs, pollutants, or other harmful substances to make them more water soluble. So, I'm somewhat worried about pollutants as well. I remember back when I watched Tom Cowan, he was oftentimes talking about pollutants. I think it's something that we should be on the lookout for. I think we're being poisoned from a bunch of different directions. But he's pushing methylene blue, apparently, which is going to stop us from being able to deal with the pollutants. He's telling people don't take ivermectin or something to that effect, which I agree with. But he's pushing something that's going to make ivermectin way more toxic. This modification can, however, sometimes make the substances more reactive and potentially more harmful. I think that's more the exception. Relation to urine. The water-soluble substances produced can now be more easily excreted through the kidneys and into the urine. All right, phase 2, conjugation, mostly in the liver. Conjugation reactions attach small chemical groups to the substances altered in phase 1. These reactions typically involve pathways such as these mentioned here. This step generally makes the toxins less harmful and even more water soluble. Relation to urine. The further increased water solubility aids in the elimination of these substances through the urine. Well, that is unless somebody tricks you into drinking your urine, like a clown. And then the worst would be if you commit social suicide and tell your friends and your family that they should drink their urine. That's just like total social suicide. Is that the point? That's like what I'm mostly worried about, is people falling for it and then propagating it and just being totally laughed out of the room and disowned. Then you have excretion. The final step in detoxification involves eliminating the now harmless water-soluble chemicals from the body. Well, now it's saying it's harmless. Kidneys in the urine, liver deals with the bile and the feces. And by the way, there's a lot of interesting studies that I've shown and seen having to do with PGP pushing into the bile. and to a lesser extent, sweat and exhalation. Something in those masks, right? Hindering the exhalation. Somebody in the chat says, Zach Hubbard's mom promotes the pee drinking. Ew, that's gross. Yeah, no, there's a lot of people who... I shared like a 20-minute countdown warning saying, I'm going live in 20 minutes. And I shared my video thumbnail you've seen on the way in. Don't drink your pee. And people are like hitting me up in the comments. I don't know if it's like Amanda Vollmer's sock puppet account or something, but they really are pushing Amanda Vollmer content on me. And, oh, here we go. Like, this is what they're coming up with. Urotherapy has been used for 5,000 years. And then they push that bullshit. I'm probably going to get banned just for showing that pseudoscience slide there. Did you see that list of crazy things that they're saying that are cures without any scientific evidence? Well, I had somebody email me telling me they drank their urine and it cured their cancer. I'm not saying me. I'm just saying, like, that's the level of evidence that they're going with here. Is like, well, a subscriber tried it. Again, I'm totally anti-poison. I'm anti-urine drinking. I'm pro-urine, though. I think people should drink a lot of water. One of the best pieces of advice that my father gave me is like, if your urine is yellow, you should be drinking more water. I think that's good advice. I'm very much for people drinking water, peeing a lot, sweating a lot. I think exercise and sweat's really good. Use all of our God-given detox pathways. Minimize the toxin uptake. To me, this is like basic stuff. This is just, don't poison yourself, and whatever minuscule amounts of poison that we do encounter, get it out of us. So don't inhibit your PGP. Don't inhibit your CYP3A4 unless you have some like really good reason to do so and you have like a game plan with your doctor. Okay, so, I've been looking into a lot of interesting stuff. There's like this that I came across, which is also dealt with by PGP. It's called amyloid beta, which is found in people with Alzheimer's disease. So it's found to be pretty toxic, but it's like a naturally occurring part of our body. In some cases, some people's bodies have it more than others. And this gets peed out. Let's see. They can detect it higher in the urine of people who are trying to detox it from their body. So another reason why I wouldn't drink my urine. Yeah, I know that, Melanie. Melanie says, Christopher Key of Vaccine Police drinks his own urine. I can already see I'm getting big pushback from covering this. And I think there's people like who are really probably scrambling at this point because they're like, oh shit, somebody's calling us out. You should have known that somebody was going to call you out. It's a shame that people haven't called you out more. And they should have, as far as like preparing their push for people to drink urine, they should understand that people are going to push back. They should have something to counter with. I just can't believe where I found myself. It's like I found myself in an echo chamber with people drinking their own urine. And I want to be on the record distancing myself as far as possible from them. Okay, so also P-glycoprotein is involved with this Alzheimer's amyloid beta, I should call it amyloid beta, not B, peptide from the brain. So very interesting that they're getting us to shut down our PGP protections, trying to get us to drink our pee. And they can't be bothered. A lot of people pushing the pee drinking can't be bothered to talk about detox. Can't be bothered. I mean, you hear people, and I don't mean to conflate people. I'm talking about just random people on the internet, not Cowan or Vollmer. But you hear people like pushing milk thistle. And they always will say, or they'll push ivermectin, and they say it's for detox. That's all they say. Like, okay, what studies are you basing this off of? They just repeat this lie over and over again. Milk thistle, detox, milk thistle, detox, milk thistle, detox. And people hear that enough, and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to detox. Let's get them some milk thistle. But then you look it up, and you say, oh, it's a PGP inhibitor. PGP is the most important. PGP is the most important detox pathway in our body. I would argue, other than like the major like poop and pee and sweat. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like internally what's actually like pumping stuff around and getting stuff out of our brain. Yeah, so this is what comes up when you search it. I have a bunch of Substack articles that I haven't finished and haven't published, but they're coming. And I have one about let me see if I can find this. I have a lot of stuff about the milk thistle with studies and such. Let me see if I can find this. And I'm not saying I know for sure that it's not beneficial. That is pee drinking. I'm saying that the evidence has not been provided. And it's just so counterintuitive. And there's no studies because it'd be disgusting. Like, who would want to do a study where you have to drink your piss? You know, it should really be pointed out that to 99% of the world, if not 100%, I would say 100%, it's so barbaric and so disgusting that it's social suicide to proclaim yourself as a piss drinker. That alone should be taken into account, do you not think? And I wish I could find this milk thistle research. Here we go. But, you know, we've heard this so many times, and it's always the same quacks telling us, oh, yeah, you want to detox? Take ivermectin, take the milk thistle. And you look into it, it's like, that's like the worst thing you could do for detox. Take ivermectin. Let's see here. There's a component in, silymarin. So there's a paper called Silymarin as a Flavonoid, Type P, Glycoprotein Inhibitor. So I believe, let's see, is silymarin a polyphenol? Yes. So silymarin is one of these polyphenols. If you remember, I mentioned earlier, Tom Cowan pushed polyphenols with a blanket statement they're good for healing. He said, polyphenols are good for healing, with no evidence provided. It's such a broad class of drugs, plant-based drugs, that you couldn't possibly make that claim without like decades and decades and decades of studies. And one of them is silymarin. So let's look at what silymarin does to P-glycoprotein, which helps us rid our body of nasty, nasty toxins, specifically protecting our brain and our testes and placenta. In a paper called Silymarin as a Flavonoid Type P-glycoprotein Inhibitor with impact on the pharmacokinetics of these various drugs. So I'm guessing these are, you can see here, PGP substrates that are also metabolized by CYP3A4. You seen a pattern? Why doesn't anybody talk about this? Can you at least come out and say, Tim, you're wrong. You're off on the wrong track, or debate me or something? Like, you can't be bothered to make a comment on it, but you can be. You have all the time in the world to push pee drinking and methylene blue. Silymarin altered the pharmacokinetics of OXC. This one here, oxcarbazepine, increasing its peak plasma concentration by 50%. And its extent of systematic exposure by 41%, which also had impact on brain drug concentrations. So I think there's more from that article. I've just kind of scratched the surface and started pulling together papers here. In a paper called Inhibition of P-glycoprotein by Natural Products in Human Breast Cancer Cells, which again, they conflate this idea of like, oh, we have to tear down the defenses of the cancer cells. They're protecting themselves with PGP. How can we get rid of this PGP protection? These cancer researchers. But the obvious problem, and I've covered this before, check out my P-glycoprotein video, which I wish I had fleshed out a little bit more. I have a lot more studies. I thought I included more, and I went back and watched it, and I'm like, shoot, I missed a lot. But look, these results suggest that ... silymarin appears to be PGP inhibitor. Silymarin substantially potentiated DNM cytotoxicity. So how can you call this a detox? There's only one way you can call it detox. If you invert the meaning of the word and use a different Latin prefix D. Most people think when you say detox, you're talking about D meaning reverse or away from. But if you take the D meaning thoroughly, then it makes sense. You're thoroughly toxifying people. Little word game, I guess. So I just wanted to share that as well because I fell for this crap. You hear it enough times. Oh, milk thistle detox, milk thistle detox. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to be toxified. That's why they say this stuff. Oh, milk thistle detox, milk. Oh, well, that's good, right? I don't want to be toxic. Let me get some milk thistle. It's so obvious, the dark psychology here. But then you look into it, and they'll tell you like, well, I'm not going to get into that. But the same thing for ivermectin and various PGP substrates. And by the way, so many, I've covered this before, so many of the drugs they're pushing, remdesivir, morphine, midazolam, PEG, which is the carrier for the mRNA in those shots. What else? There's other ones. Ivermectin itself, I'm blanking on a couple. There's more. All like the major ones that people are yelling about. They're PGP substrates. Many of them are CYP3A4 substrates. Meaning if you're inhibiting the PGP or the CYP3A4, you're going to be more toxified. So I really just wanted to call out that I'm not for the urine drinking agenda. I'm not for drinking ant juice, which apparently he sells as well. Tom Cowan, going back to Tom. Polyphenols, I don't think are healers. I think there's tons of bad polyphenols, which are going to shut down bodily detox. So I'm wondering, like, what the hell is he doing over there, research-wise? Where's he getting his orders from, if anywhere? So that's the main, those are the main things I wanted to bring up today. Stay away from methylene blue would be my advice. Stay away from ivermectin. Don't drink your piss. And the only reason I have to say these things is because there are people pushing them. So as a reporter, I'm just covering what I call poison ops. There's psyops, psychological operation. There's also even a worse variety called poison ops. It's a term I coined. That's where there are poison operations. And some of these poison operations are very hard to detect because you have to do a little thinking. You have to put some things together. You have to do some addition. And they invoke binary weapons. They'll find these potent PGP inhibitors you can go to CVS and buy, or you'll get shipped to your doorstep these days from Amazon. And then they have these other heavy-hitting poisons that they convince people to need to take for the scary boogeymen of the day. Namely, parasites is one they love to use, which they never diagnose people with. They just seed these thoughts that you're infested with parasites, even though there's no evidence. So I must say that I'm very disappointed in the likes of Cowan and Vollmer. I hope they respond with actual evidence, and it'll be interesting to see what they say. Again, I could be wrong. But I'm not going to sit idly by as people are tricked into pushing pee and committing social suicide and drinking toxic blue dye from someone who's afraid of blue light. And I guess I'll leave it there. I don't want to ramble too long, but I do appreciate people stopping by. I'm sure we'll see a lot of pee drinkers in the comments, people purporting to be pee drinkers. As always, when you see comments on social media, you have to wonder who's behind it, because there are people who have big motives in certain categories. Like for ivermectin, there's people who push ivermectin who I'm a total thorn in their side. Showing people the studies showing it's neurotoxic, cytotoxic, genotoxic, clastogenic, mutagenic, etc., anti-fertility effects. I'm a huge thorn in their side, so why wouldn't they spin up a bunch of sock puppet accounts, thumb down my videos, leave a bunch of nasty comments? People were trying to spread a rumor that I'm a sex offender in Canada, and I'm breaking the terms of my sentencing. Nothing can be further from the truth. I've never been to Canada. Certainly not a sex offender. I assure you, I would have been doxxed publicly so many times, and rightfully so, if I was a sex offender. And they were telling people, call up the RCMP and tell them that Tim Truth's online and he's not supposed to be online. All of this because I exposed the ivermectin harms. I didn't get 1/100th of a percent. I didn't get 1/100th of this, 1% of this, when it came to other really nasty drugs that I've been calling out for, let's say, 5 years. I'm on YouTube, so I can't say which one. But that should tell us something. It tells me a lot. It confirmed and validates what I expected. What I have discovered, that is. And I'm seeing a lot of that with the urine drinking already. It's been like an hour show. An hour since I've posted my Twitter post. And by the way, I'm TimTruth123 on Twitter if you want to come connect on there. But just keep in mind, the average comment you read doesn't really tell you that that's one person out there who doesn't spin up a bunch of sock puppet accounts, who doesn't actually belong to somebody with a vested interest in getting you to drink pee or ingest clastogens or ruin your fertility. So be very careful out there with the comments. I like to stick to like, okay, let's get these big name personalities to make a statement on what their evidence is for drinking pee. Where's your double-blind placebo study? Not your subscriber who told you, oh, I had cancer, then I drank my pee. Because that could have just been your friend or in some email account you whipped up, or just a total blanket lie. We can't fall for that crap. Same with the ivermectin miracle stories they love to tell and spin up. People need to be discerning. People need to be selfish when it comes to your health. Don't make your decision as part of a group. Don't make your decision based on how many thumbs down or thumbs up there are. Look for the substantial evidence. And so I want statements. That's what I'm gunning for here. I want people to make statements on CYP3A4. I want people to make statements on PGP. I want people to make statements on why they're pushing urine drinking, ivermectin ingesting, methylene blue poisoning, drinking grapefruit juice. It's like, who comes up with this crap? Oh man, drink grapefruit juice. That'll cure the COVID, she says. Northrop said. What are you talking about? Like there's only one explanation here, and I'll leave it up to you. Take care.